The most important space missions.
Throughout this presentation, I will be talking about the most important milestones in space history.
On April 12th of 1981, the Columbia lifted off into space. This mission marked many firsts, including the first time a spaceship landed back on Earth by gliding down a runway. Also, it was the first ship to use solid rocket engines. June 18th, 1983, Sally Ride was the first American woman in space. This was the 7th Space Shuttle mission, and the second mission for the Challenger orbiter. With 4 other astronauts, she deployed 2 telecommunication satellites, one for Canada and one for Indonesia. In quote of Ride, I felt very honored, and I knew that people would be watching very closely, and I felt it was very, very important that I do a good job. The very next mission was the first African American in space on August 30th of 1983. Guyon Bluford and his crew released an Indian communication and a weather satellite into orbit. Guy always said, no matter how impossible your dreams may seem, never give up. Space Transportation System 9, Flight of the Columbia, launched on November 28, 1983. This mission was dedicated entirely to science. It was the first mission to use Space Lab Module, a cylindrical laboratory of the science experiments packed into the shuttle's cargo bay. February 3, 1984, marked the first time an astronaut walked outside the space shuttle without being tethered. Bruce McCandless and Robert L. Stewart tested out the Manned Maneuvering Unit. They were the first human satellites to orbit the Earth. This shuttle was also the first shuttle to land where it was launched. On April 6, 1984, the Challenger launched on a mission in which became the first in-space satellite repair. The Solar Maximum Mission satellite was in need of some repairs. It was launched in 1980 to study solar flares. NASA saw its first tragedy on January 8, 1986, when 7 astronauts lost their lives. One of them being a high school teacher who was supposed to be the first teacher in space, which ended tragically when the Challenger disintegrated shortly after launch due to engine malfunctions. One of the most memorable moments between the US and Russia came on June 27th of 1995, when a US shuttle docked to the Russian space station. The Atlantis mission delivered 2 Russian cosmonauts to the station and then picked up a NASA astronaut and 2 other cosmonauts who had been there for a couple months. NASA has so many memorable missions, but the final thing I would like to talk about is the final space mission. The last shuttle, the Atlantis, launched on June 28, 2011. It carried 4 astronauts and a cargo bay packed to the brim with spare supplies. After the final flight, NASA's 3 orbiters were retired and put in a museum. To sum everything up, the US has had great accomplishments in space, and there are so many more memorable shuttle missions, but these are all the ones that I'm talking about.